Well, looky, looky. According to a new report, Wendy Williams does not have frontotemporal dementia.
What if everything we thought we knew about Wendy Williams was completely wrong? Because after years of being told she had a severe neurological condition that supposedly destroyed her ability to think for herself, brand new test results are revealing something totally different. And the truth behind it all might be darker than anyone expected. These new findings didn't just shake fans, they've flipped Wendy's entire guardianship upside down. But the most unsettling part is why some people believe she was labeled with these illnesses in the first place, and how another major star, Nicki Minaj, might be next in line. Let's break this all down, because once you hear the full timeline, none of this feels like an accident. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop a comment if you love this kind of content. All right, let's dive in.
I feel like the Guardian has not done a good job of protecting my mom. As long as she has people around who are yes people, I know that she's not getting the help that she needs or getting better.
I've got so much money. I want it for my son.
For years, Wendy Williams was one of the most unfiltered voices in pop culture. The woman everyone watched because she wasn't afraid to speak on the stories others ran from. But when her health problems became public, everything around her shifted. She went from hosting a thriving talk show to suddenly being declared unable to manage her own life or finances. Almost overnight, a court guardian was put in charge of everything she owned, everything she earned, and everyone she interacted with. Wells Fargo pushed for the guardianship after claiming she wasn't capable of handling her accounts. Doctors then diagnosed her with frontotemporal dementia and aphasia, illnesses that supposedly explained her behavior, her slip-ups, her emotional moments. It was the perfect explanation, maybe too perfect. Because the more we look back at how fast everything collapsed, the more strange the timing feels. And just when the story seemed settled, new tests blew it wide open. But the real twist? These new results didn't come from the same medical team that labeled her before. They came from someone completely outside the original circle, and the findings were the total opposite. A few days ago, Wendy underwent an entirely new series of neurological tests from a top New York specialist, and what he found shocked everyone. According to the report, Wendy does not have frontotemporal dementia. The same condition that kept her under legal control might not have existed at all. This wasn't a small update. This was the one thing that could rip her guardianship apart from the inside. For years, she insisted she wasn't crazy, that people were putting words in her mouth, diagnoses on her paperwork, and barriers around her life. And finally, a doctor backed her up. So now the question isn't, is Wendy sick? The question is, why was she diagnosed with something this serious in the first place? And that's where things start getting uncomfortable. Because based on what people close to her are saying, this wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a setup.
When she put out those pictures of the dude pulling his pants down, and it looked like some gay act that was going on, he got on the phone. He said, let me tell you this. When I get back to New York City, if she's on the radio station, he's talking to a radio executive. He said the same thing to he said, nobody that I deal with, nobody that I know is gonna do anything with y'all, no business at all. It ain't gonna be no artist, no nothing gonna come. He's telling people that at a radio station. When we got back to New York City, Wendy Williams was in Philly at a new station.
A very homosexual era of hip hop as well. There was a radio personality once upon a time. Her name was Wendy Williams, and she was practically burned at the stake for talking about such. And now it's all come full circle.
Right, with the Diddy situation.
The moment her guardian took over, things changed in ways that didn't add up. Her family was cut off completely. Her son spoke up, saying doctors claimed her condition was caused by alcohol, but her team still allowed her to drink regularly. Her condo was sold, furniture gone, personal items lost. Even her beloved pet disappeared from her life. And while all of this was happening, Wendy's independent evaluations, the ones suggesting she wasn't as sick as they claimed, were ignored. But the real question is this: who benefited from her being labeled incapacitated? Because a guardianship gives someone else full legal and financial control. and Wendy hinted that it wasn't just her medical team. She pointed fingers directly at the bank that started it all, accusing them of wanting to manage her money themselves. Then came the rumors that this wasn't just about finances, but about silencing her. Because Wendy has a long history with some powerful people, and not all of them want her talking. If you've followed Wendy's career, you know she's had run-ins with some of the biggest figures in entertainment. And according to fans who followed her story closely, certain industry giants may have had reasons to keep her quiet, especially as legal cases began popping up around one of the names she spoke about the most. Wendy had publicly called out major stars before, including situations involving Diddy, years before his legal troubles became mainstream. She talked about things people refused to touch at the time: relationships, rumors, strange events, and behind-the-scenes situations she believed were being covered up. And whenever she spoke, controversy followed. Now, some people believe her sudden decline happened at a very convenient time, right when certain stories she had talked about years ago were finally resurfacing publicly. And this is where the story takes a turn, because Nicki Minaj has entered the conversation. Nicki Minaj has been loud lately, and not about music. In multiple posts and comments, she's suggested that the same forces that went after Wendy might be preparing to do the same thing to her. According to her, there's a pattern in this industry: push certain celebrities into guardianships, control their assets, and silence them when they become too powerful or too outspoken. She even called out specific people she believes were connected to Wendy's downfall, claiming some of those same names are circling around her now. And the wildest part? Nicki believes the only thing protecting her is that she's married. Because if a star with no spouse gets diagnosed with a mental condition, true or not, everything they own can be seized and managed legally by someone else. It's happened before. So when Nicki started hinting that industry insiders were trying to paint her as unwell, fans began connecting dots. And some of those dots lead directly back to what was happening to Wendy behind closed doors. But even with the new test results clearing Wendy, there's still one last battle she has to fight.
This is not something that is like a conspiracy theory. This actually happens. But if they're able to separate Nicki and Kenny, that makes Nicki vulnerable, because your husband is your power of attorney. Your husband is your signator on all of your accounts in the event anything goes wrong. Michael wasn't married. Britney Spears was married, but of course they control all of that. And so the mere fact that all these narratives are out about Kenny stealing this to buy chains and buy that, that's not what it is. It's like, you know, they got doctors that are giving out these diagnoses saying that she's schizophrenic and bipolar and all of this stuff. And then Kenny's now here. You know, she trusts Kenny. Of course, they've known each other since they were kids. Their families know each other. And so Kenny is just in the way. And so what do? You create narratives to try to separate, because if you separate, then you can divide and conquer. And so that's what it's about. You know, she's going into her latter years, and, you know, there's a lot of money on the line and she's worth a lot, but Kenny is in the way. And so, yeah, I mean, look at what they're doing to Wendy Williams. Had Wendy would have still been with Kelvin, they wouldn't have been able to put her under a conservatorship because she has a husband. So, you know, and like I said, there was only one that was accused of stealing. We're going to leave it at that. Okay?
Now that doctors say she doesn't have dementia, Wendy's legal team is preparing to go back to court. They're planning to file to end the guardianship entirely, and if the judge pushes back, they're ready to demand a jury trial. A trial means everything comes out: who diagnosed her, why they ignored other medical evaluations, where her money went, who made decisions she never agreed to, and who stood to benefit. And here's what has fans raising eyebrows. This new medical test, the one that finally cleared her, just happened to arrive after certain industry cases wrapped up, after certain names were no longer being investigated, after certain people no longer needed to worry about who might speak in court. Coincidence? Maybe. But the timing doesn't feel random, especially not to the people who've been watching this unfold for years. When you zoom out, Wendy's situation suddenly looks a lot less like one woman's health crisis, and a lot more like a pattern that keeps repeating. First Britney, then Kanye, then Michael. The moment certain celebrities step out of line, push too hard, or refuse to play along, suddenly narratives about their mental health begin to circulate. And now, with Wendy's diagnosis falling apart, it forces a bigger question. How many guardianships were really necessary? And how many were simply convenient? Because if someone as public, as loud, and as influential as Wendy can be labeled incapable overnight, what does that mean for anyone else in the industry? Wendy Williams spent years being told she was sick, unstable, and unable to take care of herself. She lost her show, her money, her home, her peace, and her freedom, all because of a diagnosis that new tests say she never had. Now she's fighting back. Her legal team is preparing for war, and the entire situation has blown open conversations about power, control, and whether mental health labels are being used as weapons in Hollywood. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think Wendy was misdiagnosed on purpose? And do you believe Nicki Minaj could actually be next? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because I've got another messy deep dive coming your way soon. This is Spotlight Rush, where the light always finds the truth. Stay tuned and stay sharp.